Welcome to the Champions of Active Women podcast. In this podcast, we will interview individuals who have been successful within athletics and beyond. We hope that these interviews will encourage and inspire girls and women to be active for a lifetime, to reach their goals, and to break new barriers in sport and life. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and the Sports Medicine Research Institute at the University of Kentucky. The mission of the Active Women's Health Initiative is to optimize health and promote physical activity and wellness for girls and women across the lifespan. We hope you enjoy our conversations and join us in understanding women's health today to ensure women's health tomorrow.
So welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Jones. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative within the Sports Medicine Research Institute at the University of Kentucky. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Jody Shoup. So Jody works as an international corporate banking relationship manager with Fifth Third Bank. Jody has always been active, but she only recently started to think of herself as an athlete. She started running and cycling while living in Japan as a way to make friends. She has run races, varied distances, and now competes in triathlons. In 2018, she qualified to compete in the Ironman 70.3 World Championship in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. In 2019, she qualified to compete in the ITU World Triathlon Grand Final as part of Team USA. It was during that race, a draft legal sprint triathlon, when she found herself part of a 5-woman peloton that included 3 former Olympians that she consciously thought, I am an athlete. Jody believes that an active lifestyle is key to a positive mental health and views her training regimen as stress relief. Jody's personal passion for an active lifestyle means the most vacations involve a destination, race, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, hiking, or yoga.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I can't wait to begin to really dive in to your story and to really what brought you into sports. So you said that you were always active, but can you talk about that a little bit of how you got into your sport or how you became a so-called athlete?
I was really active as a kid just because I've always had energy, but I never really played an actual sport. So it was more being active out of necessity. Like if I wanted to go somewhere, I had to walk or ride my bike. And being the oldest of 4, that meant I had a lot of chores, that chopping wood and things that now people, pay money to go do at the gym. But that was just kind of lifestyle, right? I started doing martial arts when I was in high school with one of my brothers. And that was kind of my first really structured activity. Otherwise, we used to just goof around. I enjoyed sweating to the oldies with a couple of my friends and their mother's Richard Simmons VHS tapes.
Yes,
and we even had the opportunity to meet him once and perform with him. It was hilarious.
That's amazing.
Yes, I know, it's hilarious. So, who can resist shaking to music, right? But, and then when I went to college, I tried to continue with the martial arts, but it just wasn't really what I was looking for there. And so kind of just went back to doing things on my own, a lot of rollerblading in Philadelphia. And I would go to the gym, and sometimes I would spend hours at the gym just, burning off steam. And it was junior year when one of the people who was involved with running the gym asked if I would compete in the Mr. and Ms. Penn competition. And I was like, what? Bodybuilding? No, this is not something I do. But all the other women that had signed up were all on varsity athletic teams, and they wanted just a regular person to compete to try to, motivate other regular women to be physically active. And so I agreed and got to experience that craziness at a limited basis because I was kind of late coming into the competition, but got to do the whole, cutting and limiting hydration for the week leading up and wearing the bikini with the paint like Arnold Schwarzenegger style. So it was pretty funny. But the funniest part was that you had to do a little performance. And I didn't do a sport. I wasn't a gymnast, so I couldn't do something cool like the gymnasts were doing. And I didn't have any of the other skills that other people were using in their performance. So I said, well, the only thing I've ever done was martial arts, so I guess I'll break a little cement slab. And so that's what I did to a Madonna song. I mean,
Spot on. Showing your strength though, but diverse background for
it was
sure.
it was a little funny, but so I was always active, but again, not like in a structured way. And then when I went to Japan, my first job was actually in Japan for a Japanese company, and in Japan, Ekiden marathon races are quite popular, and it's basically a relay race. So you have a team, and it usually has to involve at least one female on the team, and you compete usually against other companies. And so I belonged to a company that belonged to a large group of companies, and so annually we would compete against each other, and most of the women didn't really want to have to run with their male colleagues. So I got asked as the sole non-Japanese person at the company, guess what? You're our runner. It's like, I don't run. And they're like, we'll teach you. And so it was hilarious. Like each day, a different one of my Japanese colleagues would meet me after work to talk about running while we ran. And so
But what a great way, yeah, to learn about running and to make friends, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really fun. And then one of those people was also into mountain biking. So then she's like, why don't you come mountain bike next week and we'll borrow a bike for you? And I had so much fun that, a couple weeks later, I bought a bike and started doing that. Then I decided I wanted to get a road bike so that I could get better at mountain biking, but without having to drive somewhere, to find trails. So started doing that, and it kind of, continued to snowball from there.
Yeah. So you've talked a little bit about obviously your career and how an active lifestyle, it seems like it was kind of built into the job that you had in a way, or into the culture of the community there. What about how sport has impacted your career here in the States now that you're back in Kentucky?
It's been interesting because I found that there are a lot of people in the C-suite of corporations who do tend to get involved in Ironman and marathon running and things like that. So I've been able to quickly form relationships with some of my clients and prospects just based on that shared sport interest. Also internally to the bank, there's a number of other folks who participate in triathlon, and so it's allowed me to build relationships with those people as well. And honestly, a lot of what I do is kind of more soft skill work, and so it's funny and kind of surprising how much triathlon and running and cycling have allowed me to really, it's become a soft skill, right? It's allowed me to form better and quicker relationships with people.
Yeah. And do you feel like your current level of sports in terms of doing triathlon has then been able to impact just your daily life, not just the C-suite relationships?
Definitely, because like I said, it's my stress relief. I would probably be a much more difficult person to work with if I didn't have a healthy outlet. But also the bank uses Humana Go 365 as a health promotion tool internally. And my team teases that I'm the unofficial Go 365 advocate because I will send out little emails to remind people of different activities or points you can get for doing things. And I'll try to plan step challenges for the team. So just to try to encourage people to be active, even if that might just be, walking or chasing after their kids or something.
That's amazing.
It's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then let's jump kind of right back into where we started in terms of how did you then get involved in the Ironman sport?
Well, so I could run and bike, but really my passion for a long time was yoga. And unfortunately, running and I haven't always gotten along, and I've had a number of stress fractures over the past few years. And at one point, it was I had one in my leg that was so bad that I was 1 grade away from needing to have a rod put in. And so I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even do yoga, and I was losing my mind. And one of my friends who I met through West 6 Run Club said, oh, well, during the break between Christmas and New Year, there's going to be a swim camp for adults at UK. You should come with me and swim. And I was like, I never learned to swim as a kid. My only experience with swimming was Girl Scout camp, where basically, you had to tread water for 30 seconds to prove that you might not drown before the lifeguard got you. So I had very limited exposure in the pool. And I was like, no, I don't think I could do that. But then in the back of my mind, I recalled that the prior summer at Try for Sight, I had competed in the duathlon and was the female winner. And when I went to get my prize, Susan Bradley Cox grabbed my hand, and instead of shaking it, she pulled me in and said, come to the pool, learn to swim. Next year, do the triathlon. And so this was just months later that this happened, and I kind of planted the seed. And so I told my friend, okay, fine, I'll go to this workshop, even though I am going to be embarrassed and probably humiliated at my poor skills. But I went, and Susan was there. But it was so bad. I laugh about it now, but it was really helpful because they would video you, and then Lars would give critiques and give you things to work on. And basically when it got to my turn, he just looked and he kind of smiled and he said, let's just work on getting to the pool and spending time in the water.
Let's just keep practicing.
Which Susan took as her intro, because she said, oh, master starts on the 3rd. I'll see you at the pool. So with no other outlet, I went to the pool, and slowly, Susan got me to be able to move forward the right direction. And so then once I had the swimming not done, but at least had some ability, a couple friends from West 6 had the idea that they wanted to do a triathlon because one of them wanted to lose weight. And so I said, oh, sure, I'll do that, because generally if someone invites me to do something active, I just agree. And so I said, sure. And so we signed up for the Muncie Half Ironman. That was my first ever triathlon. I had no idea what I was doing. I bought a wetsuit the morning of and wore it, something you should never do. but while it was a struggle, and while I would never want to repeat that exact experience, it was actually a lot of fun. And when I finished, I was smiling, and I thought, I would like to do this again. And so then I just stuck with it.
Yeah. So it sounds like your injury really impacted your sport experience and your future in sport, as opposed to kind of holding you back from an injury. It really kind of introduced a whole new world to you to be able even to go compete internationally,
Yeah.
as well as represent Team USA, which is amazing.
Yeah, it really was kind of an open to, as they say, when one door closes, another one opens. So
yeah,
that's really what
exactly.
happened.
And I love that you say when people invite me to do active things, I just go on and do it, because I wish people could see you, because I've had the joy of swimming with you before in the pool, and you really do have a smile on your face almost every time I've seen you be active, which then makes other people want to be active also. And so in seeing you throughout sport, just curious if there have been women throughout your journey. You've already kind of named one, Susan Cox, but if there's been other women who have kind of influenced you throughout your journey of becoming an Ironman or martial arts, wherever you want to start.
Unfortunately not in martial arts. In yoga, definitely, because all but one of the teachers I've worked with have been women. Actually, I shouldn't say that, because there was one female teacher that I had in martial arts. When I was in Japan, I was learning the naginata, which is this female weapon, at the Budokan in Kyoto, Japan. And the woman that would teach was probably in her 80s. I mean, she looked very frail. She would sit on the stage and yell out what we were supposed to be doing. But if you ever made a mistake, that woman would fly off the stage like lightning and strike you with a wooden sword. And she was strong. And I just remember thinking, being terrified of her, but also thinking, I hope that I have that strength and ability when I am, I probably didn't even have it then, let alone, when I'm her age, but so I guess, yes, I can say that she was one person. But in triathlon, thankfully, there's been a lot of women. Of course, I mentioned Susan, but locally we have a lot of great female athletes, and I found that they're always really willing to, answer questions or help out, or, give you advice on equipment, lend you a bike if you want to try it out, which has been really great. And even actually now I'm friends, virtual at this point, but with some women who I met when I was in South Africa for the race, just because you kind of bond, over that sort of experience, but which has been a nice aspect.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Just different ways with Ironman or any race, and different factors of how it really becomes a community really quick. You do bond over training, over race day, and just being with people. I want to ask a quick question, because you mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, but what other activities do you like to do besides triathlon, besides swim, bike, run? Because I know that you do a lot of fun stuff, including in the past doing things with your dogs. So I'm curious of what that includes. Just a variety of how people don't necessarily need to do one sport. They can do a lot of different activities.
Natalie, my problem is that I have way too many hobbies and too many interests, but I mentioned that I liked to rollerblade when I was in college. I still rollerblade. There are a few of us that enjoy the Legacy Trail, which is a great place to, I'll easily go 20, 22 miles, and you only have to cross the road once. It's fantastic. But I would encourage more people to do that. I do like to be active with my dog. We do a lot of hiking, and my previous dog and now my current dog have competed in the US Canine Biathlon, which is basically an obstacle race that you do with your dog. So the obstacles are large enough that people do them as well, but it's great because it's active, but it's also teamwork and obedience, and so there's a lot of different skills that you can work with on your dog, work with your dog. And the event is a lot of fun because you have all sorts of dogs and all sorts of people that show up. They have different waves that they do. So the serious people who want to run and plan to go fast, and have wild dogs go first, and then at the end there's people who just want to walk. It's only a 4-mile course, but you could easily walk it, and I've seen Shih Tzus do it all the way up to, there's a police and military division, and they compete with their German Shepherds and Malinois, and to watch them work is amazing because
I bet that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's just a really fun thing to do with my dogs because it's
bonding. It's fun.
Yeah, it's bonding, and you can tell that they're loving it just from the little smile on their face. But and so as part of that, my current dog, I've had her for just over a year, but when I got her, she was kind of afraid of water. So, which actually my first dog was too. So we do a lot of different things to get used to water. I enjoy stand-up paddleboarding with my dog, and that's kind of fun and an easy way to get the dog used to being in the water without being in the water. We do a lot of hiking. This year, we are section hiking the Sheltowee Trace. And hiking is another thing that is great because it's really accessible to anybody. You can go at your own speed and your own distance. And that would be something I would encourage people to look into if they're interested. The Sheltowee Trace Association puts on a hiker challenge every year, where they kind of organize it, and one weekend a month for 11 months, you work on hiking the 333 miles of the trace. It starts just north of Moorhead and continues down into Rugby, Tennessee. And even if you don't have anybody, that would like to hike with you, you can sign up for this, and people just naturally kind of, group up with other people who want to walk their pace. So there's no pressure, or if you wanted to walk by yourself, you at least know that there is somebody who's going to know where you are and, be there at the campsite waiting to make sure that you get there safely. So it's a great way to kind of get to explore that and just see different parts of Kentucky, because I enjoy hiking the gorge a lot, but really hadn't experienced any of the other areas that the Sheltery Trace goes.
That's
So
awesome.
hiking is another thing that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, and it's a great way to try new things and to see new places
Mm-hmm.
also. So I have a big question for you, because obviously being active is part of your lifestyle, and that you're gung-ho and excited and will jump on anything if someone asks you to, which I absolutely love. But how do you think that your life would be different if you didn't have the chance to play a sport or to be physically active or to grow up in that lifestyle?
That's kind of hard because I really do. You read in my bio. I think that being physically active does have a lot to do with just your mental health and wellness. And I don't know that I would necessarily. I mean, I enjoy reading, and I actually at some point in my life have even crocheted, but those things are difficult because they require you sitting down and being still. So it's really hard to imagine. I mean, because I'd say I would at least walk, but that's even activity. So I really can't imagine it because it's just, so much a part of who I am.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's hard when it's part of your lifestyle, even you said influencing your career, your
Mm-hmm.
friends, what you're choosing to do in your own time. And so I think that that's awesome to also note that it's not always just about sport and competition, but just that active lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give to girls or women about being active?
I think that you have to make it a priority, and it's not just making the activity a priority, but making you a priority. I think as women, we tend to, take on a lot, but we also spend a lot of time taking care of other people. And a lot of times at the end of the day, you might be out of energy to want to get up and go for a walk or, ride a bike or something like this. And so you really have to make it a priority and know that by taking care of yourself or doing this thing for yourself, you will have more energy and maybe better mindset and make you better able to care for the other people in your life that you care about.
And I think that's something that we're experiencing right now. So for our listeners, this is being recorded and released during the COVID-19 pandemic. And just in thinking about, I think a lot of times people think of physical activity or sport as going to a gym or going somewhere and working out as hard as possible, and they see that as being hard or a challenge or scared to start, versus looking at how an active lifestyle and just movement is just so good for our bodies and our mental state. Like you mentioned, like it's not always about prepping for a race or training for something. It can simply be to reset.
Taking the dog for a walk.
Yes.
It's honestly like the highlight of my day.
Yes, exactly. So any tip that you would give to someone, to a female, or any ideas for women who maybe want to try to get into Ironman?
Well,
Or maybe
first
a little intimidated by it.
definitely, but just it is a great confidence builder, but obviously it's intimidating to start, but know that you can kind of break it down in pieces, right? So don't be afraid to ask for advice or ask somebody for some guidance, because in general I think I found that everybody involved in the sport love it and really want to share it with other people, so are more than willing to do what they can to help make it accessible to others. But even in doing the distance, I know myself mentally, I break it down in pieces. And like for Ironman that you and I both did in Florida, by the end, I was like, okay, how much farther do I have to go? And it's like, all right, I'll break it down in 3 mile segments, because that's normal distance for one of my dog walks. So I would think in my head, okay, where am I in the neighborhood if I was doing this walk with the dog? Just to kind of, play a mental game with myself in some ways. But, you can do anything for a minute even. Sometimes on the really hard workouts, I'll be like, okay, 1 more minute. Okay, I did that. Now 1 more minute. Just knowing that as a vegetarian, I don't want to use how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. I don't want to use that expression necessarily, but it is kind of like that, right? You just got to start baby steps. Like me, getting into the pool and just putting one arm over and over.
Exactly. I think that's some great advice for people who love sport or who love being active, whatever it is, love it for a reason. And I think that's 100% true in terms of they want to share it with other people, just like you sharing with your coworkers different ways to be active as well. And so I think that's awesome advice, just to ask people, to show up and just try one foot in front of the other. That is perfect. So thank you, Jody, so much for taking time tonight to be with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Champions of Active Women podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and was produced by the Faculty Media Depot at the University of Kentucky. If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen and subscribe to all of our episodes wherever you find your podcasts. For up-to-date information about the Active Women's Health Initiative, you can find us on social media at UKAWHI. Thank you for supporting us as we work to promote health and physical activity among girls and women across the lifespan.